Hey everybody out there, how's it going? Hope you're all doing well. Today I wanted to have a discussion and make a video about something that I feel is pretty important in regards to The Last Jedi and some of the criticisms that people are having about it. And just one of the things that I think is a big issue going on within the movie and why it has been negatively received by a lot of people in the fan base. And that is the tone of the movie. It's really one of the biggest, if not the biggest issue in the movie, besides your opinion on some of the story elements. The tone of the movie is very, very confusing. Uh, a movie, as you're watching it, should express itself and it should depict and show you what it is, what it's going for. When you're watching a horror movie, you should know that it's a horror movie. If you're watching a comedy, you should be laughing. If you're watching an action movie, you should be seeing action, right? And there should be certain things that make up that style of movie. So when we're watching a Star Wars movie, which is a space opera, which would be under action, adventure, drama type deal, there's a certain tone that you expect when you're watching it. And all throughout The Last Jedi, we're sent mixed signals as far as what the tone actually is. And what I mean by that is there are tons, if not every moment of gravity within the movie, every dramatic moment within the movie is undercut with a joke. And I want you to sit there and think about all the moments where there's something important happening, where a character is making a choice, a character is having to deal with something that could be life threatening, a character is doing something that will affect how the rest of the movie goes or how that character develops or anything of importance. There's a joke underneath it within The Last Jedi. And it's really, really confusing as an audience member. And I'm going to go into more detail what I mean. But I just wanted to say this seems like a trend that's happening with a lot of the Disney movies. And it's to be expected. I mean, when Disney bought Star Wars, I think we kind of all expected it to be a little bit more geared towards all audiences. Not that the original and sequels weren't, or the prequels weren't, but I just felt like with Disney at the helm, it's going to be a little more in that manner. So when we're talking about this new trend in tone in these Disney movies, I'm referring to The Last Jedi, The Force Awakens, and a lot of the recent uh, MCU movies. Uh, the specifically, I'm thinking Guardians of the Galaxy 2 and Thor Ragnarok. Both those movies I enjoyed. I was entertained while I was watching them, but it really did feel to me, as somebody who's enjoyed most of all the MCU movies, that they were pretty heavy handed with the jokes at every moment that they could squeeze one in. And it's fine. In the comic book movies like that with the MCU, I feel like it works and I'm more lenient with it only because it's a comic book movie. And if you're going into a comic book movie and you're taking it too serious, or the characters within the comic book movie are taking it too serious, it's not going to work all that well. The only time I can think of where it does work well is with a character when either it's rated R and you can get dark and gritty, or a character like Batman or something like that, who's more grounded anyway, so it can be taken more seriously and it's a little bit more believable as compared to some of the crazy Guardians of the Galaxy type characters and stuff, which are just completely out of this world. So that's what I'm saying. So when I'm thinking of this new tonal shift in these Disney movies, I'm a little bit more lenient with the MCU ones. But when I see it invading the Star Wars movies, I start to get a little worried, and I feel a little feeling in my stomach that doesn't set that well. It doesn't sit that well because Star Wars is supposed to be a dramatic movie. Yes, it's a space opera. Yes, it's an action adventure movie. It's a fantasy It's not sci-fi. It's a fantasy adventure space opera. And it's about space wizards, and it's about guys with light swords, as anybody who likes to belittle these arguments says. But they're supposed to be taken seriously. The events within the movie matter to the people within the universe. There are real repercussions to what's going on within the movie. So I need the characters and I need the people writing the stuff to understand that it should be taken seriously, that it should not be something that is just can be just used to plug in throwaway jokes every so often. So it's just really troubling when I think of the direction that this tone shift might take the Star Wars movies overall. And in The Force Awakens, it wasn't as bad. I mean, there were a few moments. I mean, there's one that there's not many that I can remember off the top of my head, but I know that there were some times when I was thinking to myself, man, I wish they just didn't put that in there, or I wish it was a little different. But in The Last Jedi, the humor was just forced, and it sucks to say that, but there's just so many moments in the movie where it feels like to me, as somebody who's trying to be immersed in the movie and immersed in the universe, and somebody who understands all the history that's happened up to this point and what the implications are for the story. When I see a forced joke, it completely takes me out of the experience, and I know I'm not the only one. So, for example, in the very first scene with Poe and Hux, when I see these Earth referenced Yo Mama jokes being put in, it immediately takes me out from worrying about what's going on with the Resistance. I'm supposed to believe that everything that has happened up to this point in all the Star Wars movies is coming down to this moment where all the Resistance is left on one ship. There's one ship left with all of them. And the stakes are at the highest that there's ever been. Everything that happened in the original trilogy, everything that happened in the prequels, it all led up to this. And I'm supposed to care. We're supposed to care about what happens. We're supposed to feel suspense and feel like our heart should race, and we should be on the edge of our seats. Oh my God, what's going to happen to these characters? How's the story going to go? Even if you know that in the end, yeah, the good guys are going to survive. Yeah, they're not going to kill off all the good guys right in the beginning. All right, we know that. But as a director and a writer, you have to be skilled enough to put tension into these moments, to make it believable, to make it at least an experience. When I'm seeing these jokes undercutting every dramatic moment and every moment of purpose, it really is confusing, and it makes me just not care about what's going on within the movie. It feels like sketch comedy. It feels like they have a scene and they have a direction where they want to take it, and then they're like, oh, you know what? We need something to laugh at. We need to make this funny somehow because we need to hit this number of jokes, or we need this style of feel. We can't have it too dark. And it feels like they put this joke in and they're like, here's the joke. Laugh at it right now. Here you go, people. You see this? This is funny. Laugh at it. And that doesn't work for anybody. I mean, obviously it does, but it shouldn't work on people above the age of 5. I mean, even 5-year-olds might look at that and be like, what is this? So it's moments like when Luke is given the lightsaber. That is just egregious. To have a moment that is supposed to have so much importance in this lore and this storyline, the lightsaber, the Skywalker heirloom that Anakin built and eventually lost when he lost to Kenobi, and then eventually Kenobi gave to Luke, then eventually Luke lost to Vader. Well, now Rey finds it from Maz Kanata, and Rey brings it back to Luke. 40 years later, he has no idea where this thing's been. Never knew if he'd see it again. Somehow it gave Rey visions and she heard voices, which kind of wasn't explained ever. But so this lightsaber, this thing that's so important to the Skywalker family, as soon as Luke is given it, I'm supposed to believe that he looks at it and in a slapstick style of comedy throws it over his shoulder and walks away. Now, I can't tell you the feeling that I had when I saw that because I just knew that I was in for a rough ride. Even the stuff that happened before then in the movie, I was like, all right, whatever. There's not every movie's perfect. There's going to be things I don't like. But when you do that, it first off, the tone is all messed up because I'm supposed to care about this moment. We haven't seen Luke Skywalker on the big screen in how many decades? We've all been waiting for this moment. The whole Force Awakens, the whole point of the Force Awakens was to find the map and to find Luke Skywalker, basically. We need to get him back to help fight the First Order. The very first moment we see him and the first thing that he does is a cheap, shitty, forced, not funny, slapstick. Anybody over the age of 5 should not be laughing at throwing a lightsaber over his shoulder and walking away. And it's even in the way, like the way that they did it. If you wanted to have Luke look down at the lightsaber and set it down, or look at it and give it back to Rey, and you still want to go that route of him being the hermit that refuses to help at first, that's fine. That's not the issue that I have. It's the way that you deliver these things that really is fundamental to how we as an audience perceive it and the way that the tone is interpreted. So that was just huge because after that I was like, wow, if they're not going to handle that with care, I'm not sure how I'm supposed to take the other things. Like even when Finn got messed up by Kylo Ren at the end of The Force Awakens, he got sliced down his back. He was in a coma all this time. None of his friends had seen him. Poe hasn't seen him. Rey is off doing her own thing. He wakes up in the back of the tank, whatever, and he has the suit on. And for some reason, instead of us wanting to care about his character and what he's going through and is he alive? Is he going to be okay? What's going on? The very first scene with him is another slapstick Three Stooges comedy thing where he's walking around and the water's leaking everywhere and it just looks so dumb. And I'm thinking, I felt bad at that moment. First off, I felt bad that we're seeing it, that this is what they're giving us. I felt bad that John Boyega's character has been riddled down, has been basically he's comic relief now. Unfortunately, he has a whole backstory of being a stormtrooper that they don't even touch on besides when it's a plot, besides when it's something to move the plot along. The only time they ever mention that he's a stormtrooper or do anything to explore that could be interesting and give his character more depth, it's just for the plot because we need to do something with the ship and you're an ex-janitor or you're an ex-stormtrooper, so you know where all the things are on the Starkiller base and on the new ships that they got. I forget the names of them. So that was another moment that really should have levity for a character that was established and that we all enjoyed in The Force Awakens, that was really just cut short. And I felt bad for us, for John Boyega, and I felt bad for Rian Johnson for writing this and nobody telling him or maybe giving him a little nudge and being like, dude, you know these characters, like we have to care about them at some point. We have to have moments where we're just given a moment with us and just the character, or two characters just talking, and we learn so much about them and see how they are, even if they're not talking, just the way that they interact in the environment and their body language. So that was just another moment. Another one off the top of my head was Rey finally being trained by Luke, and she's sitting on the rock and she closes her eyes and she's going to start trying to feel the force, and Luke says, put your hand out, and he puts his hand out, and then then Luke starts tickling her with with the leaf or something, or a feather. I don't get it, guys. I don't get that. But that does not work for me because I'm supposed to believe that these characters in this moment of such great importance are doing this stupid stuff, and it just doesn't work for me how they are, how they're supposed to be. And I understand that Star Wars is funny. We have to we have to go into detail here. Star Wars is funny. Star Wars has been funny. I can think of a few moments right now off the top of my head of humor in Star Wars that from a little kid till now I'll still laugh at. When Leia says to Han Solo in the Death Star, "Get this walking carpet out of my way," talking about Chewbacca. Or C3PO giving all the calculations as to what their chances of survival are. And Han Solo says, "You never give me the odds, kid," or "I don't want the odds," whatever. These moments are funny in Star Wars, but they work because they're not fundamentally. Well, first off, they're not being forced and they're not right in our faces. They're within the character. Leia really is that princess who feels like maybe not she should be served because she's a badass, but that she is royalty and she has that snarky attitude to her. C3PO is not really aware of what he's saying when he's telling everybody in the ship that they're basically have no chance of survival. They work within the moment and they're not character changing. They're natural. That we as an audience get to see them and they're funny. But within the movie universe, they're not saying it and then other characters in the movie are laughing. It's not funny in their world. It's funny to us as a viewer. But in The Last Jedi, the humor is like, oh, it's funny to the characters too, because guys, it's funny, so laugh here. I mean, they might as well just put a laugh track in it and flash the light. Laugh now, clap now, this is funny. That is not nuanced, it's not artistic, it's not difficult to do. It's just shit. That's all it is. It feels like corporate shit that they just shoved in there because they felt like they needed to. It wasn't natural. It wasn't anything natural in the characters. And that's my next point. Is the humor in The Last Jedi fundamentally changed many characters that were established in The Force Awakens, which is supposed to happen only hours before The Last Jedi. So having characters change that much within a few hours makes absolutely no sense. Or it changes characters from past lore, like Luke Skywalker, or even Chewbacca to an extent, who has basically been written out as just a plot device whenever Rey needs a ride, which is sad because Chewbacca actually had a purpose in the original trilogy. In this trilogy, or in these movies, he's literally just a plot point. But my point about how it fundamentally changes characters. So take Hux, for example. Let's break this down. In the first movie, in The Force Awakens, Hux is an imposing character. Hux is interesting. Hux has the respect of the First Order, and he's basically on Kylo Ren's level within the First Order. I mean, we see him and Kylo Ren standing next to each other, being given orders from Snoke. We're led to believe and we're shown that they are on equal footing. There's a rivalry between them. So we're supposed to take Hux seriously. He's somebody who we want to learn more about. He's somebody who could have his own side plot lines and be doing his own thing. Maybe add layers to the First Order instead of them all just being baddies. Maybe Hux is plotting to take out Kylo Ren so he can be the one in control. And it works because in the original trilogy, we also saw how Grand Moff Tarkin had control over Darth Vader. Grand Moff Tarkin was the only one that Vader had to answer to of all the Imperial commanders. So it was really cool to see that dynamic get played out a little bit inside The Force Awakens. But then you put The Last Jedi on, which is supposed to be only hours from that. And every scene that Hux is in, I challenge you to find a scene besides the one where where Rey and Kylo are knocked out, where Hux isn't comedic relief. Think about it. Think about go rewatch The Last Jedi and tell me. The first scene, he gets prank called. The other scene with Snoke, he gets thrown around. He's just a He's a rag doll. The other one, Kylo Ren throws him around. He's a rag doll. He's not. He's not. He's incompetent. They show him as incompetent. They don't give him anything to do. And I'm not saying that you have to give every character something to do. But when you build something and then you completely change it or you completely destabilize it, people are going to ask why. It's a legitimate question. Why? It's not critique. It's not nitpicking. It's me just saying this was how it was, but then it was changed to this, and I just would like to understand why. That's natural. That's healthy critical thinking. So Hux was fundamentally changed as a character, and it's poor writing to me. Um, so it's annoying that every dramatic moment gets cut. Every single dramatic moment gets undercut with a joke or with a moment of levity, and it's not even good comedy. It's not even nuanced comedy. It's not something that makes you think or something that works within the characters and who they are. And it's not, there's no, there's no depth to it. There's no style to it. There's no grace to it. It's literally, bong, he got hit in the head. Ha ha ha. He's hurt. Ha ha ha. It's funny. Ha ha ha. I mean, that was funny in the 1920s. Like, that's not funny now. Sorry to tell you guys that. I don't know if you need to update your criteria, Disney, of what people laugh about, but it's not that. So, so the tonal issues in this movie, the way that the tone of the characters, the tone of the overall moments, and the confusion that sets in when you're watching this movie. There were so many moments where I was trying my best to get pulled in to what was going on, trying to be immersed in what was going on. And it was completely shattered by by me seeing somebody do something stupid and think, why? What was that? Why did that happen? I don't get that. And to people who are going into this movie casually, who don't care about Star Wars, don't know anything besides Darth Vader, Yoda, Luke fighting in space, they might not care, and that's fine. I can't change other people's opinions. That's not what I'm here for. But I think a real discussion has to be made about the detailed ways that these things were put together and the ways that it failed pretty miserably. And it's a shame because I feel like this movie had a ton of potential. I feel like that there was a lot built up in the last movie that really could have been taken advantage of pretty easily. I mean, I've seen tons of fan fiction from people all over the place online that is just like light years better than this, even if they kept the 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 framework of what this movie was intact and just changed a few little things. It would have made it so much better. Just taking out some of these stupid little jokes I talked about. Luke throwing the lightsaber. Simply just hand it back to Rey. Just hand it back. Was that one moment, was that one cheap laugh worth it? Was it worth it, Disney? Was it worth it, Rian Johnson? That one laugh to fundamentally change something that the fans, the people who are the reason why you even have the job to make this movie, the fans, the only reason why there is a Star Wars land now being built by Disney, the only reason why you're being paid millions of dollars to make a movie that you clearly don't even understand, we're the reason why, the ones who go out and support it. So our issues with it are valid. You can't tell us that they're not. Star Wars is unique in that way. It's corporatized now after Disney bought it, but it wasn't always like that. George Lucas isn't a perfect guy either, but at least when he owned it, it was something creative and unique, and you got new stuff, and it didn't feel like just some bland corporate shill job that we got, maybe a bunch of hack frauds. So that's basically that's all I can think of right now. I mean, just the tone. It's a big thing with this movie, and I really wanted to make a discussion about it because I think that there's a lot of things wrong with this movie besides just the tone, a lot of storytelling elements, and a lot of other things. But if the tone's not right, then the movie's not going to be good, no matter what else is in it. And that's why I think maybe the Han Solo movie might be decent. It might be not terrible if they at least keep one steady tone throughout it, if they at least make it not confusing to people. So let me know what you guys think. Let me know if you think tone was an issue in the movie. Let me know if there's anything you think I missed, or things that I'm nitpicking at, or things that uh, could be added to the discussion, whatever. Um, and I think I'm going to make a couple other movies like this, just discussing core filmmaking elements of the movie, such as like the characters and the plot, and the legacy that the movie leaves for the rest of the movies and how it impacts previous ones. So, yeah, so thanks for watching, guys, and let me know what you think, and I'll see you again soon.